too, like, this can kind of go into, like, I guess my other question I was going to ask was like, how do founders, how do companies in this space, how do even companies in the Web2 space that already have existing communities, like, how do they engage with them more? Like, what is like the ways that we can induce more engagement within these communities? And I think there's a couple of things foundational that come into play too, and obviously the first one is that whole experience of the onboarding, right? Where taking them and building the relationships, that's already the start because like we already mentioned before, like if you're already building those relationships between these community members and the project founders and the team itself, and the vision, you're aligning everything together, they're going to be way more engaged, right? Like on a consistent basis with your content,
100%.
with your ideas, and everything of that sort. So, like that's why it's extremely important right from the get go to get that like nailed down. And it's crazy because like James, we spoke about this, like when there's people that want to build
We have.
communities in like 4 weeks or less, and it's like it's nuts. I mean, you said it too.
That's not a
It's not
community.
community; it's an
That's not a
audience.
community.
Yeah, it's an audience. Yeah,
You're building it. Like, come on.
yeah, yeah. It's nuts, and so it's like there has to be a lot more planning that goes into it to at least create something that's very sustainable and can keep building upon itself for years to come, right?
Yeah.
And I also think too, like uh when we go back to like the first question I asked, it was like, why would you even care about creating a community in the first place? Like, you get so many insights. Like, you can put your ear is so close to your ideal investor or customer, to where once you get to analyze even what they're talking about in like a general chat, for example, like you can use certain uh, dashboards and analytical platforms. And I've shared that with you, James. I think like Orbit Love, for example, can like show you
Orbit's
certain.
dope. Orbit's dope.
Yeah, I'm not affiliated. We're not affiliated by them anyways. I've just it's something I've used in the past. Um, but you're
Another one
able.
is Threado. Threado is pretty cool too. They have some
Yeah,
unique
I've heard about that.
stats there. Yeah.
Yeah, so and like it's really cool because once you start to analyze the data of the communities to a certain extent, you can start to see a lot of similarities between the conversations that take place and like certain keywords, for example, that they say, and then from there, like you can personalize the experiences of these community members too, and start to create like subgroups within your main Telegram or Discord group, for example, where if you hear
Yep.
people talking about your product, but only using it on a certain day, for example, or like a weekend thing, you can create a group all around people who only use your product on that type of day and kind of have fun with it in certain ways. And like, it's really
Sure.
cool once you start to dig deep
So
into it. Yeah.
like I think like all of that, like that post launch is great when you start playing with the data and all that. But I think we need to bring it back, like, because the question I think was like, how do you get more engagement, right? And you have to bring it back to the very beginning before you even launch the community, right? And it's and so like you have to start with the why, your motivation, right? So you have to have a motivation, and it can't be make money. Okay, if your motivation is make money, and that's not necessarily bad. Okay, I'm a capitalist, but like there has to be something more than make money. Okay, like there has to be, or if people are not stupid, they're going to see right through it. Okay, they're just going to see through it. They're not stupid. We're just not stupid anymore. We're smart people now, or at least most of us, I hope. But so you start with your motivation, your why, right? And then after that, you need to create like the value structure, the value statement. What value are you going to give to your community? Okay. And what value do you want to get from your community? These two things are very important, but you have to make sure you weight it on the value that you're giving to your community. After you develop your value, okay, then you need to develop like your overall goal. And this needs to be like goals, massive goals, huge goals, the moonshot goals, okay, over 6 months. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Then you need to develop community personas. I'm going to break that down just a little bit. And this is
Hmm.
kind of my structure. This is how I build out like strategy on this. All leads to how you engage with people, right? So you develop your community personas, which are a little bit different than marketing personas, because marketing personas, as you guys know, like it's about targeting, right? Where do these people, find themselves? What platforms are they on? What type of communities are they in, right? So it's targeting systems, right? It's finding them and then trying to engage them so that they can come in the top of the funnel, right? But community personas are a little different. We're looking at engagement, right? So what type of value do these people, like what do these people find value in, right? What type of recognition makes sense to them, right? What type of activities do they enjoy participating in? It's all centered around
Exactly.
engagement.
Yeah.
So you
I
need to
didn't
build
like.
out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. But yeah, so like and then once you have that onboarding system, after that engagement plan, because you have your community personas, you have your big goals, you know your whys, you know your value that you're trying to bring. Now you can actually build out how you're going to engage people and how you're going to incentivize it. Once you do that, you break it into achievable milestones, and then after you launch, you seek feedback all the time,
Hmm.
constant
Yeah,
feedback from your community.
and
There you go.
it all goes into a loop, and they all play an integral role with each other because once you get this community persona down, and you see a lot of the commonalities potentially with all the other community members, and you get these insights that you haven't had before, it all ties in, especially with like the why and the purpose, everything. It all ties down to your messaging too, and your content. Like creating engaging content for these communities is really important as well. And once you have these insights, you're able to really just position your messaging in such a way to really get to them and pique their interest a lot. So I see, Richard, you have your
Yeah,
mic
yeah.
on.
So I mean, just to add to this, I mean, I'm all about engagement, and bringing everyone together. And I think one of the biggest things we can do to increase engagement is unification. Obviously bringing everyone together and trying to make sure, again, just like we talked about relationships, and that even goes where we've gone as far to develop, different rooms and different, different systems or pieces of systems that uh, that will guarantee everybody in a given group or room will meet each other, through X amount of time, and then having other things to make sure over time groups are brought together, because we see that unification of a community is, the more unified, the greater the probability of success and survival.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And like again, I think too with like experience building, and I've asked myself. I actually talked to like Steven and Richard a little bit about this week because I was just thinking about this. Like I was just sitting on my chair, just like brainstorming and deep thinking about like the experiences that these communities are being built upon. Like, I wanted to see what you guys either opinion is on this or not, but like, you know, even as like founders and marketers and community managers, like, creating an experience, an engaging experience for these community members is one thing, but I feel like too I feel like there's like, maybe I'm wrong, but there's always a sense of having to one up yourself in this space too, because once you set like a certain threshold of like the experience, like it's like super amazing and everyone loves it. Now you always, at least as a founder or marketer or a community manager or builder yourself, you're like, all right, how do I one up myself to get to push myself to do a better experience for next time too. And I feel like over time, like sure, in the short term that's great, but over time that might lead to potentially worse outcomes because of that. I just wanted to see what your guys'
Hmm.
opinions is on that. Like it was something I was just toying around with that idea. Um,
I don't know. Like, I think it all depends on the community and the project itself. Because there's sure there's projects out there, and I think your question is around like the project itself having to one up itself constantly in order to keep
yeah,
engaging.
yeah,
Yeah. So like, yes, certain projects have to do that for sure. And I think it's usually utility driven projects.
hmm,
Because, once you have a utility, then people say, okay, now what? And then you have to provide more utility and more
Mhm.
utility and more and it's like a never ending cycle, which can be problematic, because nowhere else in the business world like do we have this where consumers are like, now I need more. Like nobody goes to Nike and says build me a plane, right? Like
Yeah.
so it's it's crazy. So but I think once again it comes down to the strategy that you develop beforehand and understanding the culture that you're building in the community, being open, honest, transparent. If you're
Mhm.
open, honest, transparent, like I've never seen a community do that and act that way
Mhm.
when the founders create just an amazing culture of inclusivity and people just getting along and having relationships. It's always the ones that are based solely around what's coming next, right?
Mhm.
Solely around the hype, solely around what big announcement is coming. And if that's how you're building your community, of course, that's what people are going to expect. So it just comes to how you build it, right?
Yeah, no, I like that response a lot because that's exactly what I was thinking about too. Was like, all right, well, what are the ways that like that can be this as a whole can be mitigated at least to a certain extent, and honest and open communication is honestly like a lot of what I was going towards in terms of just my thinking because I was like, without that, I mean, there's no way for community members themselves to know that you're not going to keep one upping yourself and having to go through this pressure of having to over deliver on a consistent basis. Um, yeah, Rich, I see your
Well,
mic's
yeah, I
muted.
just, I mean, to that, I really, I mean, I understand the point of diminishing return. And, that's the thing, like, like those that make $70,000 a year, right? They say they get past that point, pretty much you're not as happy, but you still need to make 70,000 and you're really happy with that level of survival. And I think with a lot of these collections, that if you're clear in the roadmap, and because I think utility is huge, and I don't want people to walk away from this thinking, oh, every community, they're just greedy, and that as long as you give them whatever it was that you were going to airdrop or whatever that they signed up for, for utility, that it's never going to be enough. Because for me, I mean, truthfully, I have over 2,000 NFTs. I mean, I am really grateful for anything that comes through. Many of the collections, and there's not I'm seeing more and more utility, and I hope there's going to be more. I hope we're coming into an era of supreme utility, personally, to where the early investors, the early believers, that we get rewarded, and to the degree that everyone just FOMOs, everyone, all those investors, like the masses, the next wave that's coming, that's going to blow this scene to the next fucking level, right? Like we need to make them drool. And I'm telling you, like, so that's, my only thing is I do believe if it's done right, that it's not like, oh, these people, oh, we just, it's a mixture, right, of utility, of intangible, of connectiveness, of having the right proper people in, and communicating things and making sure that everything aligns. And I think that's the other thing, I'll add, and then I'm off for this little bit, is that I think a lot of these communities, they sometimes forget what they originally sold, and they go on and onto other ventures, and they get their hearts wrapped around these things, and they totally forget what the original community signed on for and what they really wanted, and they just lose them, right? Because then they start trying to force the market on the market, right? Trying to force what's going to happen and demand and trends. And you can't do that. You need to listen to the community. You need to listen to the market and adapt and serve what they want. You can't force it. You are to facilitate and guide, just like we talked about. But